It's time for an anniversary in space. The Spirit Rover from NASA arrived on Mars' dusty surface almost exactly 21 years ago. This changed everything we knew about the red planet. In fact, the golf cart-sized rover's main job was to look for signs of water on Mars, which it did perfectly. We now know that the reddish, shimmery body in space wasn't always as dry as a bone as was thought for a long time. However, the Spirit project also had a number of very bad things planned. Unfortunately, NASA lost touch with the probe all of a sudden in March 2010. They were unable to re-establish the link in the time that followed, so the mission had to end the next year. Spirit wasn't the only one visiting other worlds, which was good. Chance, its sister rover, was built the same way and will keep looking at Mars until June 2018. NASA's Spirit and Opportunity robots did not land normally when they arrived on Mars on January 4 and 25, 2004. Instead, they first slid across the planet's surface about 30 times like balloons before stopping. Before the robots left Earth on June 10 and July 7, 2003, NASA scientists gave them an interesting job. Could it be that Mars, which is now thought to be dead and cold, had water in the past? Since the Mars Global Surveyor and Mars Odyssey space probes from 1999 and 2001 had already found signs of a former lake, scientists chose the same area in the Gusev crater as the landing spot for Spirit. At the same time, Opportunity got very close to a small crater in the Meridiani Planum plains on the other side of the planet. Mission would have been over in about 3 months if everything had gone as planned. Thankfully though, not everything went as planned. At first, the project was only supposed to last 90 sols, or 90 days on Mars. However, both probes would far exceed this goal. To put it simply, 1 sol is equal to 24 hours, 39 minutes and 35 seconds. Instead of the 90 sols that were planned, Spirit ended up covering more than 2,200. This meant that it was able to move much farther and take many more shots than planned. In numbers, this means that the rover went across the surface of Mars 7,730 meters and sent more than 156,000 pictures back to Earth. But the science work that Spirit did was also not ignored. The APXS X-ray spectrometer and the Mossbauer spectrometer on Spirit were used to measure almost 370 things and 933 things, respectively. These instruments were able to look at things from Mars without damaging them. As was already said, Spirit wasn't stuck in one place. Instead, its 6 independently driven wheels let it move around on the surface of Mars and look around. Along with the different cameras and spectrometers, the probe had a swivel arm, a rock microscope, and a tool that let it brush and drill a few millimeters into rock surfaces to look for water on Mars. After a several-month trip through space, most of us would need a short break. But Spirit started sending the first high-resolution color pictures from Mars to Earth soon after its soft landing with the help of airbags. At first look, what we see could be mistaken for an earthly desert. It's another wasteland on Mars, full of reddish-brown sand and a huge number of rocks. The true color picture of the middle part of the so-called Columbia Hills, taken from about 300 meters away with Spirit's panoramic camera, is just as amazing. But after the first pictures were taken and the first chemistry and mineral tests were done, something happened that, looking back, seems like a bad sign. NASA's ground team quickly lost touch with Spirit on January 21, 2004. As soon as it became clear, Spirit's computer had broken down and was restarting itself all the time because of a memory problem. Luckily, the experts were able to quickly fix the issue, and on February 6, things went back to normal. The search for former water, which was the science focus of the mission, was also doomed at first. Scientists looked at the first rock samples and found that they were basaltic and had not been changed by the cool, wet weather. Even though NASA thought the rover would only last 90 days on Mars, it was sent to the Columbia Hills, which are more than 2 kilometers away, to look for signs of water elsewhere. This is where the panorama picture on Sol 158 was taken. Spirit finally got to the mountain range, which was about 5 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. There he picked up on an exciting first hint. Scientists looked at a rock under a spectrograph and found hematite in it. Hematite is a mineral that can form when you mix it with water. The most important water hit, though, was Sol 205, who was called Coulis. This strange rock clearly showed the mineral goethite, which is high in iron and has water in the form of hydroxide as part of its structure. Besides this amazing find, which was one of the strongest signs that there is water on Mars, Opportunity also made another amazing finding on the other side of the planet. In particular, Opportunity found an abundance of blueberries where it landed. These are not tasty blueberries from Mars, of course. They are small hematite rocks in the shape of balls. The researchers came to the conclusion that these spheres were formed inside the rock because they were either partly buried in the layered rock of the crater rim or spread out in front of it. It's important to know this because more research revealed that they contain Josie, a potassium iron sulfate hydroxide that usually forms in water. After that, Spirit did its best to climb Husband Hill and captured more stunning panoramic pictures on a ridge below the summit. After going to Mole Hill, Low Ridge Haven, and Silica Valley again, Spirit caught a dust devil, which is a unique air whirlwind about 34 meters across. But the robot also found more signs of water, which was good news. Spirit had already found something sulfurous at Husband Hill that was probably also bound with water molecules. On its way back down, the probe came across a rock that had a lot of magnesium iron carbonate in it. Spirit found a strong sign that non-acidic water must have once been soaked up on Mars because this substance forms in wet, pH-neutral habitats and dissolves in acidic liquids. In Silicon Valley, on the other hand, scientists became interested in a sandy area that was being stirred up. The very interesting thing about this was that the sand in question was 90% silicates. In general, water is the only thing that can make such a dense silicate buildup, and it's possible that water from a hot spring played a part. In this case, it only means that the area in question might have been a good place for life to grow in the past. But the weather on Mars today is a bit more unpredictable, as shown by the huge sandstorm that covered the whole planet in 2007, which made it very hard for the two rovers to continue their mission. Because of this, less than 9% of the sun's light hit the surface. It was a few weeks before Spirit and Opportunity could do simple things again. When Spirit broke a rock with one of its wheels, the inside of the rock was studied and it was found that it may have also come from a hot spring. Spirit, on the other hand, was soon caught. In the West Valley, the rover got stuck in soft, loose dirt. It was then stuck in a sand trap. To get the rover out of its jam, the experts imagined what it would be like to be stuck on Earth. Spirit could only free itself little by little, which was a shame. Lucky for us, it was still able to make enough energy to do more research, which led to the discovery that the sandy trap was made up of a mix of basaltic and silicate-rich materials. As the saying goes, a blessing in disguise, the rover's trap turned out to be a great chance to do something fun. Based on what was in the top layers around this area, liquid water must not have been here for very long. The only reason soluble substances like iron sulfate had been washed away so far was because of this. Minerals that don't dissolve, like hematite and silicate, stayed on top. What was still wrong was that the rover was stuck and couldn't move forward or backward. Following this, NASA started a well-known program called Free Spirit, which let everyone help with the rescue efforts. As the tests went on, the experts came to the conclusion that Spirit had broken into a hole with sand inside and a harder crust on top. Things finally got serious after 6 months. The next recovery process did not go as planned, which was a shame. There were several driving commands that only moved the rover a few millimeters, and during one of the efforts to save it, the right rear wheel broke. The rapidly decreasing energy supply and the coming winter on Mars didn't make things any better. On January 26, 2010, NASA had no choice but to say that the rescue attempts were over. After that, the rover was supposed to be used for study that stayed in one place. It probably would have done that if radio contact hadn't been lost on March 22, 2010. Up until May 25 of the next year, NASA tried a number of different methods to get Spirit to answer again, but it never did. In practice, this meant that the task had to end by force. The last picture Spirit sent to Earth in February 2010 was another wide shot of a part of the 166 kilometers wide Gusev crater. As was already said, Opportunity, its sister probe, had been working for a lot longer. It worked on Mars for 14 years and 219 days before a dust storm made it impossible to wake up from sleep. The last pictures taken by Opportunity were on June 10, 2018, and they show the sun in the sky of Mars, just barely shimmering. The sky is getting darker because of a coming dust storm. Now we will show you how to make the small sparkling subscribe button darker when you click it. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, that way you'll never miss another video from us. We'll see you soon.